So hello everyone, welcome to the Zoom meeting again. So today it seems we don't have an agenda set up by the Think team, and until I hear from them, we can change the agenda to something different. We can start with just 3 questions and answers. Anyone with questions about the fellowship or about the preparation for the application process, either from the medical graduates or dental graduates. Anyway, I know in the process you will need a letter of recommendations. So if you want a letter from me, I want you to send me a request from IRAF, the website. You can request a letter, or from other websites, for example, the dental graduate. If you want to help me write a good letter for you, specified just for you, please add some details of what you have been doing. Like if you were involved in a project, you have some presentation, moderating the Zoom meeting, any kind of activity that you want me to comment on the letter, showing your contribution to this program, or your advance in your skills and knowledge, let me know. So send me a separate email so that when I write your letter of recommendation, it will be designed and showing your progress, your project, or your involvement and your improvement in your skills and so forth. So just to highlight some aspects. Sometimes these aspects will show up when they invite you to the interview. They will look at your CV, your application, but also on the letters of recommendation. And sometimes they highlight certain areas. So if I write you have been working on the project that presented in, let's say, Rehab and have been presented a few days ago at the Alzheimer's Dementia Observation Conference in the Netherlands. If I put this in the letter, Rehan, if you have an interview, then they will ask you, tell me more about this project. What did you do? What's your role? What output did you? How was the presentation in the conference? Did you get any feedback? So forth. So it's gonna be an opportunity or a window for them to look at you and your activity, specifically in this program. You can do other things like volunteering and doing internship or externship. They can ask about these activities as well, but you are the one who decide what I can write in your letter of support or recommendation. Any questions or any comments about the fellowship itself? Go ahead, Dr. Sami.
Hello, Dr. Nadir. Thank you. My question is, a lot of the time, I applied for like many jobs, and when they ask about the fellowship, I included the fellowship in my like CV. So this is their question: do you get paid for this job? I want to know how important this question, or how important if, like I said, I don't get paid for this job. No, it's just like an education. It's like I don't know. I want to know what is the importance of this question in the interview.
So the question of paid or unpaid, I don't think is relevant to the interview during the process of the matching program. I think your answer is the right one. So this program is not paid, it's a virtual program. The goal is to empower you and increase your skills, your knowledge in certain parts, but in general, you want to increase your skills in doing research work in geriatric medicine specifically, but you can apply the same concept in other areas or specialties, pediatric neurology, psych, and so forth. So the most of the fellowships will be supported by educational funding, and you will be in person. So if you are to, let's say, join Harvard research program, you will be an employee of Harvard for that program. And I did that when I was in Boston. I spent 1 year in research postdoctoral fellowship. So this program most likely is postdoctoral fellowship. You do research, bench work or lab work, and you get paid while you are doing the actual work. So you need to work with a mentor. Either you work in a lab where you will be doing cell culture or whatever is required, animal work, or you want to collect data from research, like from chart review, like hospital records and so forth. So they want you to be in person in this paid program. Ours is virtual, so you are at home, and we are not requiring you to do activities for us. It's for your own sake. So we want you to learn and apply whatever concept you learn in actual project. So when you are, let's say, learning about how to write a paper from the whole way from starting the idea to writing the manuscript, submitting it, accepting it, and publishing it. So all this learning process of the knowledge and the skills, you can know it from viewing videos, for example. But we want you, in addition to learning the process itself, we want you to apply it. So you can take one of the, let's say, posters that was presented in the past, and then turn that into a manuscript. Dr. Behan, for example, and her team presented a poster just a few days at Alzheimer's patient. So that poster can be modified so that it can be changed into a paper. The way to do that, you can just elaborate of the material itself. So you see it's a case presentation. So you look at what's the problem, you write about how significant that problem, and then you put the case and then the conclusion of that case and what's the output, what's the take-home message. And you can add some information from some references to support your manuscript as far as how important that topic and what can be applied from your case, so that people will benefit from the case when they read the article. To do that, you need to investigate more or to do some research and know the steps, and then find out what journal, and then apply or submit your article, and then if accepted, it will be presented. So this is one way of improving yourself and your skills and your knowledge while you are at home. So you are not getting paid, but you are getting the whole money or the whole experience of the research fellowship. You can apply the same concept in other different aspects. If you can bring your own ideas, you can share ideas with others, or you can join some other fellows who are starting or discussing new ideas to start a project or different projects. So you can get involved in these. In addition, we did webinars and we did app development. So one thing you can do is developing an app. So maybe in the last last half of this meeting, I can show you a simple way to develop an app, and we are 54 participants now in this meeting. So I can show you how to do it, and if every one of you did that, you can put that in your resume that you are able to develop an app, a functional app, and you can test it and you can share it with your family, friends, or other fellows and see if they have any feedback. And then we can talk in the future about if we want to carry on that project and improve that product to be used by others or whatever. But the experience itself, when you're developing it, you can talk about it in your interviews and so forth, and you can build on it in the future if you want to, if you think it's important. I hope I answered your question. It's a long answer, but okay.
No, you did actually. Thank you very much. I think I didn't give him the same. I just didn't talk that much, but as you said, I'm learning and improving my skills about research and this kind of stuff. Thank you so much. I think you elaborated more. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. No problem. Thank you. Any other common questions or things you anticipate or things you want to do or ideas you want to develop as a project, new projects? So you can raise your hand at any point. But I'm going to share with you my own experience. So before I joined residency, I worked in different places, mostly research work. So I started in Boston as a research assistant, medical assistant, kind of secretary to one of the neurologists in the area. And then I tried to get connection and so forth. So I ended up finding a postdoctoral fellowship in Boston. It's a combined program between Harvard, Brigham and Women Children's Hospital, and Mass General Hospital. So we worked in a lab, basically looking at some of the mice with their out mice, and then looking at cells. It's a GI program. So we work on different factors, and so I spent 1 year. It was paid. It was supported by the government at that time. After that, I moved to Buffalo, New York, where I joined the Buffalo Neuroimaging Analysis Center. It's an imaging center where they analyze MRIs of patients with neurological conditions, but they focused only on the multiple sclerosis, and then they elaborate or they extended the experience to patients with stroke, patients with Alzheimer's, and so forth. So at that time, I spent a couple of years, and I worked initially unpaid, and then I got paid. So my job was on the data analysis and data collection and coordinating the effort of that. So I started by looking at the charts, collecting the data, making sure it's clean, and then saving them in the database, building the database, and then helping with the program at that time, SPSS, trying to analyze the data, present it into graphs and output. And then my boss was writing these abstracts and writing these papers. So we presented some of our work in different conferences. We went to Greece and presented there and in the different conferences here and there. But I learned some, and I was good with designing. So I was the main person to design the posters, any presentation, PowerPoint presentation for that center. And I learned a lot with programming at that time, different languages in programming. All this supported me to become the manager for the database at that center. Then I got the first year in university where I started the residency. It was the first transition year, and then I joined MSU second and third year. After that, I finished my fellowship in geriatrics. So as part of the research during residency, my first year, I did not do any research work because the program was small and we were focusing on clinical aspects. So we are trying to learn how we see patients and managing them and supporting them in different settings, the outpatient and the inpatient. When I came to the MSU, the focus, in addition to the clinical aspects, they supported us, or they encouraged us to do some research work. So all my colleagues were publishing papers here and there and doing presentation posters and so forth. So my first poster was about a case. So it's basically when you see patients, some of them might be a unique case for your interesting case. So I took one case and I created a team with my two other residents, and to present it, we just did a background about how to present a case study in a poster format. So we made the abstract and submitted to local conference, and they accepted it. So we started working on that poster, and we presented the poster, and from that on, I learned how to get the case presentation. After that, during my fellowship, I did some work with data collection about substance abuse or substance use in long-term care and the waste, because a lot of it are wasted some of the medications in this setting because of the government rules and regulations. So the idea came from one of my mentors there. So we did collect some data, and I presented that in also a local conference, and we got some like top rank in that conference. So this is my initial experiences with research work. Then I joined the ANDA, the American Medical Director Association. I was selected as a fellow there. It's called a future program. Each state in the country here, they can select one or two or a couple of either fellows, residents, or sometimes medical students from that state to become a future fellow in the ANDA program. It's basically they teach you, they work with you on certain aspects of how to become a good geriatrician or a good medical director in the setting of long-term facilities, and got you interested. So it helped me also get connection, and I started working on some projects. So each year I try to develop an abstract and submit it to either the American Geriatric Society Association or the AMDA, the American Medical Director Association. And then we developed this program, this fellowship. So we worked on different projects, and the same way we worked on data collection from the hospital, patients' records, and we did cases, and we did other aspects like literature review, technical review, and we published in different formats as well, either posters or papers or webinars. So this is the journey for myself as far as research work. At one point, it might be a request when you join residency to do some research project. It depends on your institution or the requirement in first year, second year, or third year. But it will help you, hopefully it will help your patients as well in the future. My interest in developing apps and mobile applications, I did the coding and then no code programs and then glide program while I was doing all this. And it helped me understand some of the concepts in coding business or how to develop a program. So I used it for my daily activity. So, for example, my daughter was going to the school, and during COVID, they stopped, so she was home, but she has a schedule, and she has to, for each class, she has to click on a link a certain period of time. And I have 4 kids, so I have to help her in addition to helping other kids besides my work, either from home, from actually going to the facility. So I did use the knowledge that I have or the skills that I gained to develop a simple app for her. So she has her tablet and she can click and join the lesson. When she's finished, the next lesson will be ready, so she will click it. So for her, it was easier, just a matter of knowing which subject I'm clicking, and it's just connecting to the Zoom or whatever program they use. But for me, it was saving my time and the stress. And then I use it on seeing my patients. So to keep track of my visit to the patients, I developed my own application so that I have my list of patients that I can see. When I see them, I enter the data so that I can get their information at my fingertip. If they have allergies, I can look up what allergies they have. If they have certain conditions, I can look that up faster, and then I make my own decision according to the information that I have faster than when I call the nurse and then the nurse is in the room. He has to go back to the computer to look up something that it will just take some time. It was efficient for me to have my own database and everything under my fingertip. And then I developed this, we developed the program for the fellowship, and to help that process being organized, we developed the application for joining the program. And then when you join, you have the app to work on your own skills. If you want to develop certain things, you have options, you have the teamwork, you have your team members. So it's more organization and more easy to use for you as a user to help develop some. And then finally, we worked on some app development with Amar and her team and others to develop certain new mobile applications. So it's how, in nutshell, about me with research. Any questions? So the next thing I want to talk to you about is the organization of this fellowship. So we try to make things work for you guys and minimize the communication unless it's necessary, because I work and I don't get you back as fast, but the seniors will know some of the answers if you have. So we assign some of the senior fellows to the juniors, so you will be in teams, and we assign each team in each week to present some of the topics. These topics, some of them might be available for you, like hypertension for today. Any one of you can present that. It's a slide already made by the TGRF Society Association. You can just read it, or you can elaborate. You can get up-to-date information, add it to the slides, or you can just tell us. In the past, some of you incorporated some of your experiences in a way that engaging. So you can do whatever. The goal is to give you an opportunity to educate us. So you will be learning how to teach, and you are free to do whatever you want, or you can do it as a one fellow, or you can do it as a team. 2 or 3 fellows can divide the subject and then present the subject. You can use the slides, the same format that we had, or you can modify the slides in a different way. Or you can even remove the slide and just talk. You don't have to use only PowerPoint. You can use different methods. And then other topics. So the main topic will be educational for every one of us to know more about pediatric certain topics. And hopefully this will be applied when you see patients at the hospital or at the clinic sometimes. So you want to do that. Excuse me, someone. Okay. So basically, the first topic will be mostly about the educational part, or in pediatric, we can modify that into general topics. Then we will talk about how we can apply some of the skills or learn some of the skills. Some of that might be personal skills. So we want to learn more about leadership, more about confidence, more about organizational skills, and so forth. So all this can be incorporated in the second part. Third part will be about skills that you can use with computers, like how to use SPSS, how to use Excel, how to use Canva, or other types of tools that are available there for either presentation or for poster preparation or so forth. So we want to do, like last 2 weeks we were doing the poster in a video format. So we changed our presentation, instead of one slide PowerPoint to the slide plus videos added together, so that we can submit it as a video. This is a new way of presenting some of the material for conferences. So this is how we want you to learn some of the tools, so that in case you need it in the future, you can apply or use these tools. And then last part, maybe we will discuss about development of the projects, how we can improve on completing the project, on submitting the project, either transcript and publication, or submitting abstract and presentation and posters. And then people will come and talk about their experiences. Some part will be dedicated for interview section, where you will be practicing how to answer questions, either virtually or hopefully when things settle down, you will be invited in person, so that you see the program director and other mentors and interact with them on person-to-person level, or instead of virtual. So this is in summary of. So I want from you, if you are a team leader, is to organize your team so that each one will have an opportunity to participate. Some of you might be unavailable because of family reason or like some in Sudan nowadays, the war there. So we understand they don't have opportunity, they don't have electricity, they don't have their laptop or availability security. So we understand some of you might be preparing for step 3 or other exams. So we understand you might have some other obligation or some situation. But for the rest of the team members, I hope that the team leader and the team member will divide the task between them and then use the app so that they can add their names and who will be leading the Zoom meeting, who will be presenting what. So before we join the meeting, we will have the agenda ready. We will have each member of that team ready to present. If the team leader doesn't have enough fellows in the team they want to participate, he or she can reach out for the other fellows in the program to see who will be available to participate. Because some of you might have some time and they are ready to present or participate more. So this is a good opportunity. We don't limit the presentation for that team to be presented on that day, like set on a stone kind of approach. We are flexible. So the team leader of that assigned day will have the opportunity to work with his team. And if there is not enough people to participate, they can explore other teams or other members from other teams in general, see who can participate and handle the topics or the agenda so that we will be ready for the meeting. And to organize this more, so to minimize our risk of going through technical issues, I suggest that the team leader or whoever will be moderating the team will have all the files sent to him or her. So he has a backup. Let's say that our panel is going to present today about whatever topic. She has her slides ready, but I want her to send the slides to the moderator or the Zoom leader so that if her computer is not working or she has trouble uploading the slides or whatever, we have the slides ready by the team member who will be moderating the team. So they will have things in line as a backup if there is trouble from the presenter side. And this just like some of the details of how you can organize and do the Zoom meeting topics or agenda. And it will help you as far as your confidence level, your teaching ability, skills, and also the knowledge. You will learn more and you will be able to educate others. Hopefully in the future, you will do the same. If you want to improve, you will look at yourself and say, oh, I need to do this or that differently. So you will have the opportunity of improving yourself. 1 year from now, you can look at the video again and say, oh, I wish I did it this way or that way. So there is always room for improvement. But you can talk about this experience when you are in an interview. For example, you can tell them that you presented 2 topics, one of them about this, and the other about this, and there are 40 or 60 or 100 fellows that I delivered this presentation to. And it will make a good impression during the interview when you talk about your teaching skills and how they impact. So like if you teach during this meeting, today, for example, we have 50 plus members in the Zoom meeting. So you can mention that I thought about 60, or 65, something about the subject. So it will be also an important aspect that you are educating not only medical graduates, but also other disciplines, like we have some dental graduates or therapy, or in the future we have some other members, let's say nursing or other disciplines can join. So this as far as organization of how we want to run the Zoom meeting. And this program mainly for you. So I want you to take the lead. I want you to be the owner of this program. Hopefully you will improve it. You might have new ideas. You have new innovations. Let me know how we can improve it together. So this part is the organizational aspect of the program. Hopefully we will all learn from each other. The seniors will teach us some of their experience in the past, and then share the tricks of how we can do things. For example, if you want to submit to a journal, what the steps. So some of them might have this experience. Or if you want to submit to a conference like Mid-Michigan or West conference coming soon. So how we do that, or and we are going to submit the abstract, how we do that. So the seniors might have a better input for you and make things smooth. The other way is to learn it by yourself. So let's say you finish the project, you have the abstract ready. Let's go and submit it to the AMDA. So you will just go to the website and follow the steps. If you have questions, let me know. We can handle it together. And we did that in the past. Sometimes they ask you, like, what's your position? Are you resident, full fellow, or attending, or student? You are in between. I will refer you as a student at this level, because you are medical graduate from your country, but in this country, you still not as full resident yet. You might be an attending in another country, or a specialist in another country, but you are here considered still you are in medical school, or you just graduated from medical school. So you are the status of a student. When you apply for, let's say, submit your abstract and you get accepted, what's the registration fees for you will be. So to treat that aspect as a student, sometimes it might be less expensive. If you are outside or overseas, maybe that might be different. As far as programming, there are different ways of developing an app or mobile app, for example, or website. The easiest ones include the Glide app, or other ones like Cadular. It's just the basic of it can be overwhelming, but it's just that figuring out the pieces of the puzzles. And then if you figure it out, then it will be easier. The learning curve will be easier for you to modify things around and so forth. So I'm gonna stop and see if you have any comments or questions or any other aspect you want me to elaborate on, or you want me to answer your questions.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Nadir. I cannot hear you. I think you're
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, Dr. Nadir, I'm not in the pink team, but I just checked on the app, and the hypertension presentation the presentation is ready. So if someone can share the screen for me, I can do the presentation if you don't mind.
If you wanna go, that's fine.
Okay. So I haven't revised it really well, but I will try to as much as I can.
So to do that, the way is I'm gonna share the screen. So most likely you will have it in the
I have it in my mobile, but
Mhm.
I don't have it in my laptop.
Yeah, so you go there, it's gonna be in the first one, I think. I'm gonna share that. You can tell me when you want to move the slides.
Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Marwa, and I'm going to do the hypertension presentation for you today. So, the objectives are be able to describe how the diagnosis and treatment of hypertension differ in older adults, when to recommend lifestyle modification, how to choose among the various classes of antihypertensive agents, and the principles of adjusting therapy. Okay, so the next slide. And also the epidemiology and physiology, clinical evaluation, treatment, lifestyle modification, pharmacologic treatment, follow-up visits, also special considerations, hypertensive emergencies and urgencies, hypertension in the long-term care setting, and frail older adults, renal artery stenosis. So we'll start with epidemiology. So systolic blood pressure increases progressively with age. Diastolic blood pressure plateaus in the fifth and sixth decades. So this what causes the wide pulse pressure in elderly. So 65% of institutionalized Americans more than 60 years have hypertension. Close to 50% of older adults have their hypertension controlled. Increased systolic blood pressure is associated with cardiovascular, cerebrovascular, and renal diseases. May also increase the risk of age-related cognitive decline and cognitive disorders. Physiologic changes with age, increased peripheral vascular resistance and decreased vascular compliance, decreased sensitivity of the baroreflex, increase in blood pressure variability and sympathetic nervous system activity, heightened vasoconstriction, impaired vasodilator systems, changes in kidney function and systems involved in sodium balance lead to increased salt sensitivity. All these are the physiological changes that leads to increased systolic blood pressure in elderly. So, diagnosis of hypertension. Due to blood pressure variability, diagnosis requires at least 3 blood pressure readings taken in 2 separate visits. Okay, so the patient, if I found that the patient is having high blood pressure in this visit, I will send him home. Then next time, when I take the blood pressure, then I will decide whether he's hypertensive or not. Consider ambulatory blood pressure monitoring for patients with extreme blood pressure variability, possible white coat hypertension. resistant hypertension or if concerned for hypotensive episodes, including postural hypotension. Avoid a auscultatory gap by inflating the blood pressure cuff 40 mmHg higher than the pressure required to occlude the brachial pulse. Okay, so clinical evaluation. Exclude secondary forms of hypertension. Identify target organ damage, determine cardiovascular risk factors, and identify comorbidities. Inquire about lifestyle, like the smoking history, the dietary intake of sodium and fat, alcohol intake, level of physical activity. Benefits of treatment. Treatment reduces overall mortality, cardiovascular events, heart failure, and stroke. Evidence not as consistent in those more than or equal 80. The hypertension in the very elderly trial study also showed decreased mortality in those older than 80 years, but didn't include frail or very old individuals. So treatment target. GNC 8 recommendations for adults more than 60. So the target blood pressure is less than 150 over 90, acceptable to target less than 190, less than 140 over 90 if no adverse effects on health or quality of life. The target in diabetics is less than 140 over 90. Systolic blood pressure is a stronger predictor of adverse outcome than the diastolic blood pressure in older hypertensive adults. I think because we depend more on the systolic blood pressure because in elderly the blood vessels are stiff, so it's really difficult to rely on the diastolic blood pressure. That's why we only rely on the systolic blood pressure. I'm not sure of this information, but I think this is the reason why. Target blood pressure of less than 150 has also been questioned recently in light of the results of the systolic blood pressure intervention trial. The lifestyle modification. Adjunct to drug therapy for all hypertensive patients. Components, first the weight reduction, then the increased physical activity, stress reduction, reduction in sodium intake, increased intake of potassium in the form of fruits and vegetables. Okay. So the results of the study of the sprint results, the hazard ratio for intensive less than 120 versus standard less than 140. Okay, so the combined outcome 0.75, so it's lower in the intensive reduction in the blood pressure in the 120. If I reduce the blood pressure less than 120, and it's significant. Okay, the myocardial infarction and the stroke, its hazard ratio is lower in the intensive, but it's not significant. the heart failure reduction and the cardiovascular death is significantly lower in the intensive with blood pressure reduction. So, general treatment recommendations for hypertension. Begin with a non-pharmacological approach. Then first start by the lifestyle modification, the weight loss, and the exercise. And then base drug selection for combination or combination therapies on individual patient characteristics. Use a low-dose thiazide type diuretic, long-acting calcium channel blocker, AC inhibitor, or angiotensin receptor blocker as the first choice for initial pharmacologic therapy. When starting drug therapy, begin at half the usual dose, increase dosage slowly, and continue non-pharmacologic therapies. Treatment goals should be gagged by systolic blood pressure and based on the patient's comorbidity profile. Avoid excessive reduction in diastolic blood pressure less than 60/65. Diuretics, significant benefits in mortality, stroke, and cardiovascular events with low-dose thiazide type diuretic. Adverse event profile of thiazides, like hypokalemia, hyperuricemia, hypomagnesemia, hyponatremia, and possible glucose intolerance, more likely with higher doses. Potassium replacement is important with thiazides to prevent arrhythmias, minimize glucose intolerance. Loop diuretics usually reserved for patients with congestive heart failure or chronic kidney disease. Aldosterone antagonists helpful in hypokalemia. Potassium sparing diuretic. AC inhibitors can be used as initial monotherapy for hypertension in older patients. Adverse event profile, cough, hyperkalemia, angioedema, renal insufficiency, especially in renal artery stenosis, and rare neutropenia and agranulocytosis, particularly advantageous to patients with diabetes and those with heart failure. Angiotensin receptor blocker blocks the effect of angiotensin 2 on the type 1 angiotensin receptor. Used as first line therapy or as an alternative to ACE inhibitors, especially in those with diabetes, hypertension, or microalbuminuria. An option for patients who cannot tolerate ACE inhibitors. The angiotensin receptor blockers. Okay. Renin inhibitors, as effective as ACE inhibitors or ARBs, angiotensin receptor blockers in blood pressure lowering effects. Long-term data are still not robust for older adults. No dose related increases in adverse events in older adults. Significantly more expensive, associated with diarrhea, and no data on safety in those with the GFR less than 30 ml/min. The calcium channel blockers or calcium channel antagonists used at low doses. Pharmacokinetic change with advancing age. Do not use short-acting calcium channel antagonists to treat hypertension. Adverse events, ankle edema, headache, postural hypotension, and constipation. So Maysam wants to carry on, or beta receptor. Sure. Okay. There's here, and Maysam, you can carry on if you want.
If you want, you can carry on. Maybe I can start from slide 19, so you don't stop your right in the middle. Okay.
Okay. Beta receptor antagonist, not recommended for first-line monotherapy. Compared with placebo, provide no reduction in all-cause mortality or myocardial infarction, and only a modest reduction in stroke. Used in those with coronary artery disease, those with a history of myocardial infarction, and certain patients with heart failure. Okay. Other classes, alpha receptor antagonists are alpha receptor antagonists are not appropriate for first-line therapy of hypertension. Alpha receptor antagonist therapy might be considered as part of a multi-drug regimen, especially in those with prostatism, because these drugs have been shown to be efficacious in improving obstructive urinary symptoms. Direct vasodilators, hydralazine, minoxidil, are considered last-line therapy due to tachycardia, arrhythmia, fluid retention. Centrally acting agents, clonidine, are poorly tolerated and associated with sedation, bradycardia, and reflex hypertension, and tachycardia if abruptly stopped. Alpha beta blockers, labetalol, useful in hypertension, urgency, and carvedilol in heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. Both may be associated with weakness and orthostatic hypotension. Then we follow up with this.
I can carry on if you want from here.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, hello everyone. So moving on, we have completed the medications used for hypertension. Now we will look into the what you need to do in the follow-up visits. So first of all, it's important to assess the adherence to therapy. Of course, you need to monitor every time for any adverse effects, especially postural hypertension, as we're talking about the geriatric population. Remember to measure both supine and standing blood pressure. It is also important to encourage the blood pressure monitoring outside the clinic. So for example, you can tell them to, if they have a blood pressure monitoring device at home, they can use it to check their blood pressures at home so that you don't only get biased readings during their visit to the clinic. Use interdisciplinary team approach if available. Also, it's very important to adjust the dosage cautiously. So any dosage, any medication you use in the geriatric population, it's important to adjust the dosage cautiously. You don't want to risk causing, as we mentioned, for example, postural hypertension in this population. Reinforce lifestyle modifications and always evaluate for refractory hypertension. So regarding the frequency of the follow-up, you need to attempt to reduce the blood pressure to the target levels, or any attempts to reduce the blood pressure to the target levels too rapidly are unnecessary and likely deleterious. So start gradually. In general, allow, let's say, about 4 to 6 weeks between the visits. It may take up to 10 to 12 weeks for full effect of the medication. So don't hurry up, wait for a while and then reassess for effect of the medication. Okay. So when the blood pressure has not been successfully reduced to target level, first of all, you need to consider cautiously, as we mentioned, increasing the dosage. You can add another medication, and particularly you would be interested in using, for example, a thiazide type diuretic, or switching to a completely different class of medication. If the blood pressure target is not attained on a 3-drug regimen, then of course you will evaluate for refractory hypertension, which is basically the definition of a refractory hypertension. And then you need to consider stepping down the treatments when the patient has maintained the blood pressure for more than 1 year. Now, if we move on to the hypertensive emergencies and urgencies, the definition of a hypertensive emergency would be any vascular compromise of the vital organs due to an extreme elevation in the blood pressure. And this can be seen in the patients as a hypertensive encephalopathy, pulmonary edema, aortic dissection, or for example, an unstable angina. Now, to manage a hypertensive emergency in acute hospital, you need to have continuous blood pressure monitoring. There should be parenteral administration of an antihypertensive, and do not initially target a normal blood pressure. You need to leave it a little bit higher and then try to achieve 160 over 100 millimeter mercury gradually over the first 6 hours of admission of the patient. Do not remember that you should not lower the blood pressure more than 25% within the first 2 hours of admission. Now, hypertension in the long-term care setting. Now, hypertension affects about 33 to 66% of the residents of the long-term facilities. Now, regarding postprandial hypotension, this is also common. It affects like 33% of the residents, and it is an independent risk factor for falls, syncope, stroke, and mortality. So you need to keep both in mind, hypertension and the postprandial hypotension. So management of the hypertension in these long-term care facilities. Now, the risk-benefit ratio of treatment is not very clear in this population. We are talking here about the patients of the advanced age and patients with multiple comorbidities or those taking multiple medications. Some evidence suggests that you need to avoid aggressive blood pressure control, so avoid systolic blood pressures of less than 130. This is likely safer in this population. Just as we say, I think even in the glucose control, you don't need to be, it shouldn't be very like a stringent or tight regulation. Several studies have identified that antihypertensive, particularly the vasodilators, as a full risk factor in this population. So be very careful when using this group of medications. Another important entity is renal artery stenosis. This is present in 7% of older adults and 25 of those with creatinine of more than 2 milligrams per deciliter. This is detectable with Doppler ultrasound or a CT or MR angiography. The medical therapy, you need to go for both lifestyle change and blood pressure medications. And then, of course, there is the option of percutaneous renal artery revascularization and stenting, but the clinical benefit for the stenting is limited. So again, in this population, it's very important that we choose widely. Don't screen for renal artery stenosis in patients without resistant hypertension and with normal renal function, even if there are known cases of atherosclerosis. So in summary, the treatment of hypertension is important because it reduces the risk of cardiovascular events and mortality in older adults. You should always begin with lifestyle modification. First-line drug therapy can include any antihypertensive class except for the beta blockers in the non-cardiac patients or alpha blockers. Start low and go slow. Let's keep this as your motto. Monitor for falls, for postural hypotension, and other adverse events. Okay, so now we can move on to the cases. So case 1, we have a 78-year-old man. He's seen for follow-up related to high blood pressure. He has an occasional headache and stable 2-block claudication. He stopped smoking 15 years ago. Regarding his history, he has hypertension, diabetes, and peripheral artery disease. He is currently on lisinopril, 20 milligram per deciliter, hydrochlorothiazide, 12.5 milligram, amlodipine 5, aspirin 81, and the diabetes is controlled with diet. On examination, his blood pressure was 165 over 90 sitting and 149 over 78 standing. His heart rate is 70 beats per minute and regular. There is no carotid bruit and his chest is clear. A systolic bruit is heard in the left hypogastric area, and there is an S4 heart sound and no murmur. There is no edema, peripheral pulses are present. On ECG, he has an increased voltage suggestive of left ventricular hypertrophy. Ultrasound with Doppler renal artery flow shows 70% stenosis of the left main renal artery. His lab findings showed a serum creatinine level of 1.2 milligram per deciliter and no other significant findings. So, which one of the following is the most appropriate management? Would you go for adding clonidine, transdermal patch? B, performing a percutaneous stenting of the left renal artery? Will we replace hydrochlorothiazide with chlorothalidone, or should we add doxazosine? Let's see your answers, everyone, in the chat. What do you guys think? Okay. I think we've, anyone else? Yeah, I see many V's, but I think, so the answer is actually C. You need to replace hydrochlorothiazide with chlorothalidone. So if we look for the reason for that, it says that the longer acting diuretic chlorothalidone is more effective in controlling resistant hypertension than a low dose thiazide with a shorter duration of action. So this is probably the reason why we are switching from one thiazide to another. So there's not really any evidence for use for going for performing any percutaneous stenting of the artery. Okay, for case 2, we have a 78-year-old woman. She comes to the office for follow-up. She had a smaller lacunar cerebral infarction 1 year ago. She has never smoked. Her history shows hypertension. She is on aspirin, hydrochlorothiazide at 12.5 milligrams per deciliter, and lisinopril 40 milligrams. On examination, her blood pressure is 150/80 and heart rate is 82 beats per minute. Lungs are clear. There is an S2 heart sound with no murmurs, and there is a normal vascular findings and no edema. So the question is, which one of the following is the most appropriate systolic blood pressure goal for this patient? What do you think? 150 to 159, 140 to 149, 130 to 139, or less than 130 millimeters of mercury? Take a look at the question again if you want, and let's see your answers. I think we have 2 correct answers so far. 3. Okay. So the answer is actually C. 130 to 139. So it says that, like, based on the results of there's a trial which is called the SPS3 trial. When a patient has a history of a lacunar infarct, this sets a lower limit, usually between 130 to 139, as their optimal blood pressure goal. Let's say if there were no previous strokes, then you will go for a lower blood pressure goal. And this should be justified by the results of the SPRINT elderly study, which I think Dr. Marwa spoke about. Okay, for the last case, we have an 88-year-old woman is seen for 6-month follow-up. She resides in an assisted living facility and is independent in all her the daily living activities and the independent ones. She is occasionally dizzy on standing, but she has never fainted. On her history shows hypertension, an MI 10 years ago. Her medications include hydrochlorothiazide, lisinopril, and aspirin. Examination shows a blood pressure of 160/70 sitting and 135/60 standing. She has a soft carotid bruit on the left. A soft grade 2 out of 6 systolic murmur is heard on the left side of the chest. ECG shows left ventricular enlargement. So for her labs, she has a creatinine of 1.2, sodium of 136, potassium of 4.5, and a calcium level of 9.5. Okay, so the question is, which of the following is the most appropriate recommendation? Should we replace hydrochlorothiazide with amlodipine, replace hydrochlorothiazide with diltiazem, replace lisinopril with losartan, or replace lisinopril with metoprolol succinate? What do you think? Notice the change in her blood pressure. So it was 160/70 sitting and then 135/60 standing. So what do you think? Okay. So I think we have 1 or 2 correct answers. So the answer is actually A. We need to replace hydrochlorothiazide with amlodipine. So of course, this patient has orthostatic hypotension, which is defined as a decrease of the blood pressure, either 20 or more millimeters of mercury in the systolic or 10 or more diastolic. So this is a common risk factor for cardiovascular disease. And reducing the intensity of the antihypertensive medication may reduce the orthostatic hypotension. Of course, diuretics are known to cause the hypotension, and that's why we're trying to replace her hydrochlorothiazide. That should be avoided or used at very low doses. We're changing to amlodipine because it's less likely to contribute to orthostatic hypotension, and it is probably the safer option in this patient. If you ask why we're not switching to an angiotensin receptor blocker, it says that it has no effect on orthostatic hypotension. So probably, as we said, the safer option would be to go with amlodipine. I think this brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you, everyone. This has not been prepared well, but we hope we try to deliver a little bit.
Thank you, both Marwa and Maysam. So for other fellows, so it's easier as you don't have to prepare. Basically, you just from your experience, and you can read the slides and you can add whatever you think is practical. If you have some additional information, otherwise you just of what the slides saying. What do you think, Marwa or Maysam? I don't want to put words into your mouth.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's not a very hard task. And of course, each time when we present, it really does really get easier time by time. As Andy mentioned, you just have to either read the presentation, you can put in any information from your clinical experience. You can try to tie it with your own experiences. I think it is a manageable job.
Agreed. Any comments, Marwa?
Yes, I agree. At first, it was very difficult. I was very nervous because it's the first time for me to present in English, so it was a big deal for me. But once I started, the first and second slides, it's very easy. The slides are prepared, and this fellowship is very friendly, so it was easy for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for both of you. Thanks for your input, thanks for participation, and thanks for presentation. Any other questions? So I think it's doable. For any reason, can jump in. We don't have to use the schedule or the agenda. Anyone will come to the meeting, they can just jump. I want to do this. But I want it to be organized in a sense that it's fair to everyone to have an opportunity as well as time saving or time management. So you will know, let's say next week, the great team is going to present, then the team members in that team, they can look up the app and say, oh, I'm gonna present next week, so I better prepare. Or if they don't, they can just say, I just want to present that topic. Put their name there, the leader of that team or the moderator of that team will go over this, make sure everything is all set up. And then if there are slides that are made, we can share it, or if you want to create your own slides, or you can just talk to us. Thank you again, Marwa and Maysam. All right. So I mispronounced Maysam. All right. So why don't we go to the next topic? Or I'm gonna just do a tutorial for. I think some of you are already working on project of developing an app, especially like blood pressure app or some other similar apps or dental app. But I'm gonna show you from scratch so that you can follow these steps. This is recorded, so if you miss any part, you can review the recording again. You can try that at home at your leisure. So you want to follow the steps, and if you have questions, let me know, or you can review the recording. So I'm going to start by going to share the screen again. So you go to glideapps.com. So my idea is for every one of you to develop an app that has 2 screens or 2 pages. So to do that, we can create the idea of the app in an Excel format or Google Sheet, and then we can develop it here in Glide app. So I'm gonna create another one, sheet.new. So basically in blood pressure app, you want to get the blood pressure reading from the machine, or if you want to read it in the office, or in this case, we're talking about systolic blood pressure and then the systolic blood pressure. So it's going to be readings like the same case, just cases we were talking about, but you can add more information about, let's say, position. So for our systolic hypertension, you want to see if they are up, down, or whatever, sitting, standing, or laying down. So these are the 3 positions. So the user will put in the blood pressure and then the position, for example. So you want to give the user a box where they put their information. The first number will be systolic, the second number will be diastolic, and then maybe a drop-down menu where they select the position. So we said we have standing, laying, or so these are the 3 options. So it's like a select from these 3 options for the user to incorporate that into their app. So one is a box with the information that they can enter for systolic, another box for the systolic, and then this will be an option of, let's say, a drop down, or they can select it from a list if you want to make this fancy. If you don't, you can remove it and just focus on developing an app with blood pressure and systolic diastolic. If you want to add the vitals, let's say the heart rate, you can add that as another variable. It's going to be 70%. So it's going to be just entering data, first box, second box, third box. If you want to go further, you can respiratory rate. So see how you can develop more variables here. If you want to add the weight, the height, and so forth, temperature. So you can increase whatever variable that you want in this setting. As many as you want, you can add, but for simplicity, we can just focus on the first 3, the blood pressure and the heart rate for now. So it's going to be 3 variables that we will let the user use, and then each time they add some of this information, it will be generated and reported in a log. So for them to look back, let's say, last week my blood pressure range was so and so, and to get a graph out of that. So you want to add one more variable here. It's timing, date and time. So for instance, today this is my reading. Tomorrow or yesterday, the reading will be there, and so forth. So you need to keep tracking the time, if that makes sense so far. So we need time, we need blood pressure, systolic, diastolic, maybe the heart rate, and you can go advanced anytime. This is how the user will do this. So they will have a screen like this, and in that screen they will have an empty box here, an empty box here, an empty box here. This will be the reading of the solid. This will be the reading for solid, and this will be of the box. So it's simple. So they put the data here, 1, 2, 3, and it will be recorded in a log like this. So we need to basically have a screen for the user, and at the background we have a log. So as soon as they hit, they need to have an image here, say next or something, or report or save. So as soon as they hit save column here, the information will be listed here. So let's say I put it 110, and then here 70, and then here 75, something like that. So this information will be recorded here, 110, 70, 75, and then with the time when they hit save. So this is the screen for the user. As soon as they enter the information save, it will be logged into 4 columns. The 3 columns are input from the user, and the first column will be at the background. As soon as they hit save, it will list the date and the time, for example. So this is the basic layout of the app. Let's try to do it in Glide app. So you go to, you can sign up, for example. You can sign up with so you can create, as soon as you sign up with your Google, for example, you can create a new project, a new team. You go to the left bar here, a new team, and you can name the team, blood pressure, development. And it's just a simple, let's say. And you can invite your members, but we can skip this. So when you have your team, it will create this page for you, the project and the beginner's tutorial. You can go over the beginner tutorial. It will show you what the steps to develop an app and so forth. You can do that in no time. But for us, we're gonna create a new project with the blood pressure and heart rate reading app, let's say. And it's a mobile app, and continue. We can create from the Google Sheet that we just developed, or we can create it from like a table. So we're gonna use the table for now. And put here. It's gonna be the same. So you're gonna need a table where you will need the 3 things you want to heart rate and blood pressure, systolic and diastolic, in addition to the date. So when you create a new one, it's gonna be like this. So this is the layout. It has middle section where the user can see the page. On the left side, the pages or the navigation or the screen. And then each screen you hit the component of that screen. So we have two screens. Screen and screen. So screen one, they name it things. Screen two, they name it categories. We cannot remove these two screens. So to remove the screen, you can just hide it. So, or you can right click and delete the screen. Right click and delete the screen. So, in our app, we don't have any screen so far. To create a new screen, you click screen. You can edit from anyone or just custom screen. I'm gonna create custom screen. So this is screen number one. I can name it, or I can do whatever. To get any information on the screen, you go to the right side. So let's say I want to name it. I'm gonna name it page one or screen one, for example. So this where the user will say an introduction where they will say this app is developed for users with hypertension or members with hypertension. So basically, screen one is information for the user. Could be a welcome notice or welcome text, or could be anything. And then at the bottom there is a hit button. They can hit that button to go to screen two. So we can create screen two where they can add their information. Screen two, it's just for adding the information. So this is how you create the screen. Screen one, screen two. Sometimes you see screen one named as home and screen two as, instead of screen two, you can blood pressure and pulse info, for example. And you can change the icon here. If you click on this one, you can create the home button. I want a home. So home. And the lock button of the blood pressure, I want it like a list of. So you change the icon here. So this is how you create your screens. This is the first part, the layout. The second part is the data. So when you want to get the information from the user, you want to save this information in an Excel sheet, but in this program, we want to create it and save it in a table. So that will be as a data. So when we go to data, we have already made tables for us, but this is tables that are used for things and categories. And for us, we don't want these two, and the user, we don't want to mess with this. We want to create our own new table. So there's here, table. And in that table, we want to create the name and then the variables. So the name will be blood pressure and pulse data, for example. So this is the data where we will enter the data and then play the data if we want to. So the first thing is that we want the user to enter the information here. So the first one is already name. We can change that into, so to change it, you go to the edit, and instead of name, I'm gonna suppose blood pressure. And I'm gonna duplicate that. And this will be the solid blood pressure. And it's gonna be a number instead of, so the first one will be a number as well. So edit, and it's gonna be a number. So we have the solid, and we can duplicate that to have the heart rate of the pulse is the number. So these are the numbers for the blood pressure and the heart rate. Sometimes you can add more specific information to each. So if you go here, you will have options like the precision. I don't want decimal, so I can just make it one precision. If it's the temperature, you can add a decimal. If it's a weight, for example, you can add the decimal. So this is how we do it. The last part we talked about is a new variable, is the time and date. So date where when the person will hit the information to be saved. So I'm gonna say date time, and you can also have some way to display. So for now we just do. So I'm gonna move this here. So the date, the blood pressure, the pressure, and the heart rate. This is the data. So this is the table, the data, and the layout here. So we have two screens. Screen one, it's called home. It's empty. Screen two, it's also blood pressure, radio, and information. It's also empty. So we can design now the layout. To do the design for the layout, we can use the component. So adding component. So the first screen here, I want to say hello, and this app developed by whatever information you want to do. So it's only a text. So you go to here and you want to do a text. There are different ways of putting the text, headline, text, and so forth. And there's also a form where the user will enter. So it's the text entry. So we are not going to play with it now, but we will go with the text. So I'm going to just use a regular text. And here on the right side, you can modify the text. So the text will be like, hello, hello. And then I can duplicate that. I can say this will develop by MSO, whatever. You can put your name, you can put, and then you can change that. You can find it for hypertension. You can change the size, and you can put it middle, something like that. Middle, center. So you can play around with the text. You can make the text in one, so for example, the developer info, something like that. And then you can add spaces. So there is space here. I can put spaces, or I can add space. So this is close to this. I want to put space between, so I can add space. And group separator. And this separator can be small or can be large. Okay. So there is a space here. So welcome, develop file, and so forth. So you can give your user more information using the text or using other methods. You can add image, you can add whatever you want to do with page one or screen one or form page. At the end here, I want to add a button where they can move to screen two or page two when they click it. So I want to add a button. And that button will take me to add the information in. So I can say go. When I hit the button here, I can modify the action. When they click on that button, I can change the text, or I can change what the button will do, what the action. So here is the action. So for me, I'm gonna just, as soon as I say go, I'm gonna prepare them to the blood pressure reading page. So it's gonna be an action, and it's gonna be go to a tab. It's called tab, and that tab will be blood pressure tab. Sometimes they call it screen or page or whatever. So as soon as I click go or next or info, whatever you want to make the button useful for the users to understand what it's gonna be. And also you can add some icons. So for now, leave it alone. So if they click on this, it's gonna go to page 2. So page 2, I want them to list the reading, like from yesterday or from last week. So I'm gonna add a list of reading. But the problem is that I don't have reading yet, so they did not add the reading. So this list is gonna be, because this is connected to the source things, I can move that to the blood pressure reading, and it's gonna be empty because there is nothing there yet. But I can modify the data later when I want them to see. I want them to see the systolic blood pressure. I want them to see the systolic blood pressure, and I want them to see the heart rate, for example. I can add an image to that as well, or you can leave it alone. But for now, so this will be the list of readings that is here. For now, the data, if you go to the, it's empty, so there is no data here. So they need to add data. So when they click on this, I want them to open a form. Let's say here, I want them to click the red plus sign. So I can give them instructions. It's going to be as a text, maybe a hint text. And I can say click on the plus sign on the right upper format to enter new data or information, something like that. I'm going to put it up here. So, so this is the information will be here. So what the user will do, will click on this, and I want them to open a form to enter the data. So as soon as they click, it's going to be a form. I want that form to connect it to the table, blood pressure, and pulse. So they can add here 140, systolic 90 or 80, and heart rate is 65, for example. But I don't want them to click on the date. I want that to be automatic here. So these are the components for the form. The date here is they have to select it. I don't want them to select the date. So I'm going to remove it. I'm going to add it, but automatically to do that, I'm going to go to date, and it's going to be current date and time. So the current date, and it's going to be corresponding to the date. The heart rate is corresponding to the heart. And the systolic corresponding to the systolic column, and systolic corresponding to the, and then if they hit submit, the data will be there. So this is the column or the data from the data table. So when you go to the data table, the first one was empty. The second one, it has the date, time, and the data that I entered. So I can click on the here and delete on the keyboard. We'll remove that empty line. So the first record is at 343. If I want to add more, I can click here and add more. 112 over 30 over 30, and then submit. And then now we have 2 readings. So far, we have the reading. We have the form to get the reading. We can search when did I have 190. This will be displayed here. When did I have 65? This will be here. I can search for certain readings, if that makes sense for you guys. So we have the form, instructions or welcoming page. And then we have the data where the user will enter new information, blood pressure or pulse, and then you can display these, you can filter them or search the data here. So this is the simplest way to create the blood pressure and pulse reading log or keeping the data in any place. And you can find the data here in this table. And the layout will show the screen 1 and screen 2. Here the icons for screen 1 and screen 2. On the left side, the component, you can play with the component. On the right side, you can play with the source for the page or for the data, and each component of that source. For example, I want to play with the collection or the blood pressure. I can change this to something like that. I think it's just a hint. So when you click on the component, it has some options you can play around as far as you display things around here. This is the way to display the readings for the user, and they can keep a record of what if they want to see last week, they can limit the last week by the date, and then something like that, or whatever information here. You can do that here as well. You can filter it. If you filter, it will filter by the date. So the date is on or before or after, something like that. So there are some options to go fancy. But this is the basic of developing an app. The last part is this part is the actions or what you want to do with the app. So in the past, we used to have like the security options and other like the color option of the app. So now it's kind of orange app, but I like blue, so we can change the layout to different colors. So to do that, I think you can go to actions and then you can change some of those stuff here. I think second. So it used to be yeah. The setting where you want to change like the colors, for example. So appearance, I wanted this color or that color or this color. So you can see when you move around, you can just change the icon and the name. You can change the icon here. You can upload an image, or you can design your own image and upload it here. You can change the name and you can add some description. This is a lot for that. Then you can change the privacy. So instead of private, you can change it to public. So everyone can use it, keep their records in it. You don't have to collect any user information. They don't have to sign in and so forth. If your app you want it to be like user specific, then you can create a sign-in page, and then you want to use a user line where each user, they will enter their information separately and so forth. So this kind of getting into a complex part. But for now, let's say it's a public app. So I want to share this app with you guys, how to do that. So hit publish here, and it will have a web address. So the second part is slide of page. The first part, I want to make it, for example, blood pressure and heart rate log //. If I hit publish, So this will be available to every one of you. You can just go to this website, copy the link, and if I click here, it's supposed to come as a new app. And you can use that. So it is username and password. I'm gonna send a pin to the email. So hopefully I have that pin. So basically it's just to make sure it's secure to some extent. So I'm gonna add the PIN number here and then sign in. So as soon as you sign in, you will have the hello page or the home page, whichever the one you want to. You can click on the second page here, or you can click on this to move to the second page. And this has the reading here, and also it has the option of adding add new. So when you click on add, it's gonna be blood pressure, pulse, heart rate, and you can save it somewhere here, submit. So this needs to be entered and then submit. So let's say 120 or the 70 or the 75, something like that. So it's gonna be the reading, 3 readings for today. And then I can share this with my family doctor or my family members. If any readings that are high, for instance, so blood pressure is high, so they can say what's going on that that time. Maybe I was playing soccer, I injured myself, or I was in pain, or have fight with my kids, something like that. So this is how you develop the app. And you can send it to other users as the invitation. So you send, maybe can you try this app? So I'm gonna send it to myself. And then if you go to video, send an invitation. If you go to my MSU, and then when I check that link, it's gonna be open to the app and then so forth. This is how you develop the app. You share the app, you see the setting, and then you can get some comments from your friends, family, and then you can modify that again. So you want to add more and more. For example, if I want to change the listing instead of this type, I can make it as cards, or make it as grid, or make it as table, something like that. I'm going to stop here. And if you have questions, I know that the MLM Health team developed the INR and published that and Google Play. It's a wonderful app. So there are other teams also working on different apps. But I want you to try it. Every one of you can try it. It's very simple. We spent about 45 minutes explaining it. If you want to try it, I think within half an hour, you will be able to register, create the table, create the app, and share the app, and it's going to be functioning. The beauty about it is that you can talk about it. You can create, you can mention it in your CV, your application. You can share it with your patients. You can share it with your family members, anyone with blood pressure issues. And the thing is, you can apply the same concept into, let's say, patients with diabetes. Diabetes is also a big issue. So we want to keep track of the blood sugar for our patients or our family member or someone. So we can do the same thing in the table instead of the time support based on blood pressure and pulse. You can add the time and the blood sugar reading, and then you can keep track. You can create a graph out of the data. You can create a daily graph, weekly graph, or monthly graph, or you can share this as a PDF and can send it to the family doctor, for example. Any questions or any comments? So who is going to try it? I'm going to share with you a story that I did develop an app actually when I was in Sudan back many years ago for a dentist. And that basically, it's the same concept, but I put a list of each tooth number so the dentist can click on the tooth and say, this has a problem, so and so. So they will keep track of each patient, the teeth, and which tooth has problem and what kind of problem. So you can apply the same concept to any other ideas that you have. Emil, you want to share some of your experience, maybe? If you are there.
Hello, Dr. Nadir. Hi, everyone. So I recently joined the blood pressure application and the adult vaccination app, and we are now building in Codular. So both groups are great, and they are very willing to participate. So regarding my experience, yes, I started with Glide. At the beginning, it was difficult for me. It was a very new experience, but I just had the willing to learn, and I think this is the most important thing, is not to be afraid of anything and try your best. Yes, it's going to be difficult at the beginning, but as you go on, you are going to learn a lot and be experienced on that. So yeah, we eventually succeeded on building the application on Glide, and then we moved to Codular. Also, Codular was actually more challenging than Glide. But also, we have gone through many challenges, but you're going to enjoy the process very much. Just believe me, it's going to be tough at the beginning. And then as you go on, it's going to be very easy and enjoyable. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. If you have any questions for me, I'm ready for that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aman. So as she said, in the past, all this was done using coding. So, for example, if you want to put the screen number 1 and then you want to say hello, you have to write a lot of code just to make the screen and the color of the screen and then the text and the color of the text and where to put the text. So it's kind of tedious task with all knowledge of coding. But nowadays it's just you use your mouse and then move around, and the idea is just to build as many apps easily as possible. And then people are developing different tools to make it easier, as Dr. mentioned. Codular is one way. MIT and Boston, they developed a similar one to Codular. It's called Scratch now. In the past, it has a different name, but it has the same component, same concept. So basically, you decide what type of screen you want to design, and then the next screen, and then the next screen. So you have the concept, and then each component in the screen what kind of, you want the text, you want an image, you want whatever, an input from the user, or a button that they can click. And after you design your screens or pages, then you will go to the code part. The code part, the code system is not actually coding, it's just like playing a game. You move around with some concept. So you will say, as soon as we get this page, what do we do? So you just, on opening the page or the screen, I want a sound. So you will say, I open a screen. This is just a part that you put in, and then you put your sound there. So as soon as the user enters that screen, a sound will start. So it's not a coding by itself, but it's like adding blocks together to get an action, for example, or moving from one part to another, or saving things in the cloud or in PDF format, something like that. So it needs some playing around, but there are a lot of tutorials and a lot of baby steps. So you look at some of the videos or some of the steps, and you repeat them, and then you'll be able to do the task that you want to do. I think, as you mentioned, initially it may be a lot to absorb or something like, but if you get the idea of this is what the steps, this is how I'm gonna do it, and then you look at how the tools are used, it's gonna be not difficult at all. It's like checking the vitals. We teach medical students nowadays at MSU to check the vitals in their first year. So as soon as they enter, we give them the blood pressure and the stethoscope. So they go and do on each other. So we use two students at a time. So one will act as a doctor, one will act as a patient. So we want them to check each other blood pressure, pulse, temperature, and so forth. So initially, it may be different or an experience that anyone can be afraid of. Oh, actually, it happened to me when I came to the US. As soon as I worked with one of the physicians, he was a neurologist. He was seeing his patients, and he told me, "Hey, can you get this blood pressure?" I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna do that." And I spent 10 minutes to check the actual numbers, and came to him like 10 minutes for only the blood pressure. He was not impressed, but for me, I was focusing on getting the numbers, the right numbers. For him, it's like the cutoff line. Is this patient hypertensive or not hypertensive? Just to put on the record that it's 150 or over 70, for example. For me, I want to make sure is it 170, 150, 155, 152, what's the actual number? So for me, it's a huge experience just getting the blood pressure. But as you get along, you get experience, and then you're gonna be, oh, it's done that way. It's just and like any skills that initially will be difficult, but if you have the will and if you think about it, you're gonna save some life, or you're gonna be useful for your people around you, your family members, your friends, your patients, or common people in general. So I think you can do a lot, and you can talk about it, the learning experience. So you don't have any idea now, but when you develop it in half an hour or 1 hour, you'll be like, wow, I did my first application, and then I can move to the second application. And I can do this, and then you can move on to analytics and have to move to Kabila and other tools.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadir. I just want to add one more thing. So the most important thing in this process is to be very patient. willing to learn, and to be persistent. You have to expect that you are going to fail at the beginning. This is normal. So for an experienced person, you are not going to build an application in just 1 or 2 days. No. So for me, it took like 2 weeks just to understand what's going on and what all those buttons about. So yeah, at the beginning, it need patience. Patience is the most important thing, not only in app development, but in life as general. Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to add to that, or to clarify. So my daughter now, she's in high school, and actually she's taking a class of coding and coding something. So she's working with Scratch, MIT tool, which is similar to Cadular. And in 2 days, she learned a lot. And I was just sitting behind her, just if she has questions, I just want to answer or explain things. But things are very simple nowadays, and with the tutorial, if you go, it's like 1 page steps, like 10 steps. You do these steps the same way I just did the tutorial now. If you follow the steps that I did, you copy paste the same step, you're gonna get the end result the same. In the meantime, maybe you will miss something, or maybe you will hit something wrong. You reverse the steps, you go back to previous steps so that you can clarify. So this is what she did. So they ask her to learn about, let's say, variable. So variable number 1, variable number 2, and then add the user. So the user will say, variable number 1, I want you to add your name. So it's a text, so they will enter their name. Variable number 2 will be their age, so it's a number. So they will add 19, for example. So these are variables. So they taught her how to learn to get the variables from the users. In Glide app, we use it as a text, for example. So they just click on the text, you put the text, click on the text entry or the form, and it will recognize that as a text or number, and it will just make it empty for the user. So the user will click on that box and will enter either the text, their name, or their number. So nowadays it's just more and more easier. So for her to go through the tutorial, she spent half a day last night and then today, and she can make things like she can make the games like the basketball. When you click on certain part of the screen of the phone, the ball will jump over it. And then other things that you can let bird fly, for example, they add sound. So it doesn't take longer because you have steps you want to follow. And these steps in the tutorials, so you will do 1, 2, 3. If you don't get the result, so you go back and see what's wrong in step 1. Nothing wrong, go to step 2. You will find you missed a little bit of something here. So and then within, I would say, hours, you can get your product from your and the first one usually is not the perfect one. So I showed you the one that we just did. It's a simple one, and you can brag about that I created this one, but there is room for improvement. The sky is the limit. So I can add some features. So each time I'm gonna add new feature. For example, I can add one feature regarding the pulse. If the pulse is more than 100, then I want to flash, or I want to say, hey, need to call your doctor, or hey, there's problem there. So it's an if sentence. So in programming or coding, I can do that. But in Excel or in Glide app, I can do it easily with one new column. I can add the column, and I can add the message, and I can add if this number with the condition is higher, then show this message. If not, then it's nothing to show. And this is just a fancy way of using some features of the program, and the user will love it. But oh, my blood pressure is good now. Okay, no, my blood pressure is high. I need to get my medication, or I need to call my doctor, something like that. Thank you, Dr. Anna. Okay, we reach our 2 hours, 4 hours. Any other questions or comments? So my goal is to have at least 100 apps developed by you guys. So if every one of you develop one app or participate in developing one app and put that in your list, you can tell me, hey, we did this. So if you can develop your own, let me know. If you have difficulty, you can ask the other fellows who develop apps before and see if they can help. If you don't have the answer, I will be happy to help you. It's not a difficult task. And actually, like app, one of the main goals for them is to have I think the motto is to have as many as 2 billion apps developed, something like that. So they want to reach a million, not a million, but a billion apps developed by users like me and you guys. So this is what they look forward, and that's why they want to be simple and easy to develop. At one point, they wanted to use an AI. So you come up with the idea, and then the computer will generate the app for you. I'm not sure if they did that or not. But at one point, they were playing around. They want you to just type, it's like ChatGPT. I want to develop an app for recording blood pressure and pulse for all the patients. So what they're gonna do, at the background, they will take your information. So they need to, the AI will read your sentence as, I want blood pressure, so I want systolic, diastolic, I want the heart, that's the pulse. Then the app will develop the column of the table along with the date, and then it's going to be user friendly. So the page for the user will be the first step. Hello, enter your information here. So they click, and it will go to the next page on the screen where they will add the systolic pulse. So this is very simplified, but it can be done or developed by the AI from the live team. This is the idea of developing apps. So you just, similar to the AI nowadays, you can tell the AI, I want an image. So you just give the details. I want a soccer player wearing a yellow jersey with a ball that color is and is in a field. So it will create the image for you, the photo for you, the image that you can use. Any other questions, comments, or anything that I can help you with, guys? If not, then I will see you next week, hopefully. Assalamu alaikum. See you. If you have questions or any comments, please send me an email or call me, text me. Assalamu alaikum. See you next week, inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Nadir.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Nadir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nadir, and everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadir.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadir.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadir.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.